The Zeus Mark II looks to capitalize on a strong legacy, with the ES or Essentials model doubling down on the exploration theme. Occupying a size point between the starter Aurora and the masterful multi-crew Constellation, the Zeus ES has captured the attention of many a player seeking a medium-sized ship capable of doing a few different tasks, which prompts the question, after a few weeks of release, how does the Zeus ES perform in-game? I'm Forrester, and this video will review the currently flyable Zeus Mark II ES model, which is described on the Star Citizen website as an exploration ship. If you've seen other ship reviews on this channel, then you'll be right at home with this video, which follows the same format. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs before finally summarizing. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the many people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it so you can be notified of future Star Citizen videos as they go live. And we'll start the tour of the ship by approaching from the left or port side. For a small to medium ship, there is a lot to see on the Zeus ES. On the port side of the rear bay is an access port for the fuel port. Doesn't do anything in game currently other than deploy and retract, but looks pretty cool. On the starboard side is a button which controls the ramp access. The ramp is one of 3 entry and exit points aboard the Zeus ES. This takes you through to the rear cargo bay. The ramp does support vehicles coming up inside this cargo bay. After closing the door, it's neat that the kind of door gear is safely stowed within some glass panels. On each of the walls are some component bays. They're toggled with a button on the right hand side of the component bay. Each is clearly marked with a number 1, 2 and 3 and houses different components. There's also a nice glass feature of the fuel tank hidden behind a window. In total, the cargo bay at the rear of this ship will store up to 32 SCUs of cargo or smaller ground vehicles. Moving further forward through the door, there's a hallway and there's a door on either side of the hallway. The door on the port side leads through to the habitation area. There's a nice RSI themed seating area, as well as lockers which give access to the inventory. Further forward there are 4 different bunks for the crew, but one of them is unoccupied. And there's also a small bathroom area. The toilet pops out with press of a button. Also on the port side, next to the door for the habitation area, is a weapons rack. There's room for some medium-sized weapons as well as some smaller sidearms. It's deployed with use of a button on the side. On the starboard side is the mess hall or kitchen area of the Zeus ES. There's a very small window for enjoying the view, as well as lots of little glass cupboards and sinks and storage. Some of these have a button on which allows you to open and close them. Moving further forward through the ship, we enter to an area which has some useful access to the outside. There's a ladder for getting in and out of the ship, which drops you down towards the front quarter of the Zeus. As this area is right behind the bridge, this ladder is a particularly useful entry and exit point, not least because it brings you closer to the cockpit, but also because it's more secure than the ramp. On the starboard side, there's an engineering terminal, simply says coming soon, as well as some component access. Similarly to that in the back, it's hidden behind some buttons. There's also access to a relay, which has a single relay currently installed by default. Slightly further forward on the starboard side are suit lockers. There are 3 of them for the 3 crew. And on the port side is an airlock. This deploys an internal and an external door to gain access outside of the ship. There does seem to be a small area where it may be possible in future to be fully airlocked, but for now, opening the door opens both doors. And right at the front of the ship is the cockpit. There are 3 chairs for a pilot, co-pilot, and a turret gunner. There is some more component access, again hidden behind the same type of doors. And on the starboard side is another weapons rack, this time with 3 medium, 3 sidearm, and 1 larger weapons store. Beneath the floor, on either of the co-pilot and turret gunner seats, you can actually see the missiles beneath some glass. It's pretty cool to see. And then hopping into the pilot's chair at the front gives you a great view at the front of the Zeus ES. Whilst the Zeus ES isn't as big on combat as the MR or Mark variant, it does come relatively well armed. The pilot operates 2 size 4 weapons, by default Omniski 12 laser cannons, which pack quite a punch. Against smaller targets in particular, squeezing the trigger dishes out a satisfying burst of damage. For a co-pilot, there is additionally a remote turret armed with 2 size 3 Panther repeaters. The turret is a little less practical, sitting beneath the ship with limited firing arcs. That's especially noticeable because the pilot often naturally pulls the nose up to chase a target for a positive G maneuver, rather than pushing the nose down. Accordingly, if the pilot is tracking a target by pulling the nose up to it, the gunner is entirely disengaged from what the pilot is aiming at. So the turret is more of a defensive option and somewhat difficult to use at that. One handy feature is that the gunner is able to fire from the remote turret, but also from within the cockpit itself. It's worth noting that if a turret gunner wants to fire both weapons, it may be necessary to increase power to the weapons to meet that energy demand. The ES also carries 8 size 2 missiles, which give a nice boost to engagements at longer ranges. The racks are a fixed size however, so smaller or larger missiles can't currently be substituted in. Defensively, the ES is equipped with 4 size 2 shield generators, which makes it relatively well defended, certainly compared to many medium or heavy fighters. Altogether, the Zeus ES is a solid combat option for a solo player. Dealing with fighter-sized NPC targets is very feasible, supported by the large weapons. Players in more nimble fighters may be more of a challenge, owing to the limited fire angles and lower turn speeds, and the multi-crew combat experience isn't the best. But for a solo player wanting to fight PvE targets, the Zeus ES does fairly well. Visibility in the Zeus ES is okay, bordering on good. The canopy is a little unusual, especially for RSI, looking like it would belong more on a Carrack than a Zeus, but perhaps with the Polaris on the horizon, there will be a new developing theme for the Triangle ship series. Nonetheless, from a perch right at the front of the Zeus ES, the pilot can see well to the front, sides and below, although looking up is sometimes obstructed, which is especially noticeable during dogfights. And it's an RSI ship, so you do get your struts too. The SCM speed limiter is 200 meters per second, which is surprisingly fast for a relatively chunky little ship, and that shows in the handling. With a top speed Zeus ES, often drifting heavily during turns, and even with judicious application of boost, taking some time to change direction. The nav speed heads up to 1050 meters per second, which again is a relatively generous top speed, and means that the Zeus ES is fairly quick in a straight line. Quantum drives were somewhat leveled in a recent sub-patch at time of recording, but the quantum fuel stores aboard are sufficient to be able to cross Stanton without needing a refuel. The Zeus is fairly cheap to operate, with refuel, repair and rearm costs usually in the hundreds to low thousands, perhaps into 5 figures of Alpha UEC if it's really been put through its paces. And as with many other versatile ships at this size point, it also presents different options for making money. Combat contracts are very feasible with the Zeus, with MRTs seeming to be the sweet spot, although experienced pilots could certainly push the ship further. The cargo bay at the back is capable of hauling 32 SCU of cargo, with a maximum crate size of 2 16 SCU boxes, which opens up options for low volume hauling or cargo trading, although the margins with a cargo bay of this size are limited. Perhaps a better use for that cargo bay would be to loot destroyed ships in the verse, or alternatively couple with a rock mining rover which can fit in the back. By way of upgrades, the stock Zeus seems to hit the mark. Arguably, improving the power plants could give a little more power for multi-crew situations, but it depends on how often that would be likely to happen to determine if it's worthwhile. The Zeus ES is a nice ship to fly. It looks impressive both inside and out, and whilst that won't be to everybody's style, it certainly has a style. Inside there's plenty of utility, whether that be the beds, suit lockers, the ramped cargo bay at the back, or other internal storage. That ramped cargo bay can also support a variety of ground vehicles, making expeditions with a Zeus a possibility. Notably, the inclusion of multiple entry and exit points is a real plus, especially the ladder behind the cockpit. Practically, it means that the whole cargo bay can be used for cargo without blocking the exit, but also it means a much shorter journey to get in or out of the ship than having to trek all the way from back to front every time. The reclaim timer at 8 minutes and 40 seconds is not too long to wait if things go wrong, but the ES is nimble enough to tangle with AI fighters and often come out on top. And the Zeus sits in the sweet spot, straddling both solo and group play, meaning it's a ship that could house a solo player, but also bring a friend or two along for the ride in situations that require that. There are some drawbacks, however. The co-pilot and turret gunner stations sometimes seem to override the pilot controls when in use, which can be annoying. Whilst the interior provides a lot of utility, packing a lot into a small space, it's largely a decorative environment in the current patch, and for some that might feel like wasted space. That's especially noticeable when looking at the cargo capacity, for which 32 SCU is sorely lacking when compared to a lot of the competition. Even the C1 Spirit, often criticised for the wasted walkway in the centre of its cargo bay, can carry more than double the Zeus ES. But the main competitor for the Zeus ES might not be the C1. The competition might be much closer to home in the form of the sister ship, the Zeus CL. The cargo variant eschews some of the niceties and drops a shield generator to instead offer 4 times the cargo capacity, all for the exact same price. And that price is $160, which is competitive with many other ships, but still expensive for a virtual spaceship. As a newly released ship, there isn't yet an Alpha UEC price for the Zeus ES, and also as a newly released ship, it's subject to the risk of balancing as time goes along, so prospective purchasers should be aware that current performance may change. That said, as a bit of an all-sorts ship, a low-end jack-of-all-trades, capable of doing many things in-game and in a nice-to-fly and nice-to-fly-in environment. But for this reviewer, perhaps the utility offered by the Zeus CL is just that bit more tempting. No doubt many of you will have an opinion on this ship, however, as it does seem incredibly popular, so I look forward to reading your thoughts in the video comments. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to help me understand what videos to make more of in future, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, you might like to do that too, so that YouTube knows to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.